Hey, welcome back to another video, and today we've got another video hopefully to inspire some people out there. Today we're going to be talking about social mobility. So the reason why I wanted to talk about social mobility is because, as I told you guys yesterday in my video, which was very controversial, apparently controversy sells. Apparently people, when people don't like what they see, they like to see it. So I'm not going to be turning into a controversial channel, but that was interesting to see. When you go out there and you express a controversial opinion, people come flocking in to see it. And a lot of people unsubscribe, so good riddance to those people. Today we're going to be going through, is social mobility alive in the US specifically? So we can talk about social mobility elsewhere. As a matter of fact, there is a Wikipedia page, which I'm going to show a little scroll of right now. This Wikipedia page basically shows all of the social mobility scores, which basically says, you know, access to education, access to healthcare, access to basically higher jobs. And one thing that I want to say about this social mobility index is that a lot of people right now are saying that there's no social mobility in the US. A lot of people are saying that if you start at the bottom, you're going to stay at the bottom. A lot of people say that if you start at the top, you're going to stay at the top. But I would like to just counter that by saying that just because there is a correlation does not mean that there has to be a causation in your life. Just because there is a correlation, let me say it again, does not mean that there will be a causation in your life. The biggest causation of people not being able to move upwards in their life is themselves. It's their mindset, and it's all of these things that we're going to talk about today. So hopefully you guys sit down, get some popcorn, and enjoy this video today, because I've got a lot to talk about today, and we got a lot to talk about. So let's just go ahead and get right into this. Number one that we're going to talk about, well, number zero, it's a dash. We're going to talk about my story. So my story, before we get to starting at the bottom, we'll go to my story. So we'll go ahead and fast forward to me being at 19 years of age. Young Casey Burns, aka Casey Burns Investing Now. I was in a fraternity. I was doing a lot of partying, a lot of drinking, smoking, doing nothing of value to society. I was basically smoking, partying, drinking. That's all I was doing. That's really all I was doing for society. Doing nothing for society. So what happened? My parents, and I'm thankful for this today, I didn't like it at the time, they kicked me out. So what did I do? I basically became homeless. I didn't know how I was going to finish school. I didn't know how I was going to get a job. I didn't have a job. I didn't have school. So what did I do? Did I just, go quit? No. What I ended up doing was I went and figured out, all right, how can I pay for school? Another funny aside is part of the reason why they kicked me out is because I had bad grades, but it turns out I'm just stupid. So anyways, that is besides the point. Graduated with a 2.8 right here. So that's who you're taking advice for, just in case you needed to know that. Anyways, my story, let's get back into it. So ended up joining the Army. So joined up the Army. They were the ones that paid for most of my school, as well as I took out some loans. And when I came back from the Army, I got a job at Safeway. So that is the definition of starting at the bottom. That was minimum wage. It was the absolute minimum wage. It was the least that I could be paid. I was paid about $300 a week. But what was I doing? I was taking that money and I was basically getting basic subsistence, which we just started from the bottom. We went to basic subsistence. So what I wanted to say about starting from the bottom is that if you do not get a head start given to you by your parents, if you do not get a head start given to you by, some grandparents or whoever, or you're not born rich, or you're not born into money yourself, you have to start from the bottom. And that doesn't mean that you can't reach much higher. It just means that you have to start from the bottom. Basic subsistence. So what I wanted to say about basic subsistence is basically that when you first start out, if you're starting from the bottom, they're going to pay you exactly as much as your basic subsistence. So you're going to be able to buy food, you might be able to get a place to stay, and that's going to be just about it. So essentially, not to get too controversial on this video, 2 controversial videos in a row, basically what basic subsistence is it is a form of modern day slavery. If somebody's going to pay you just enough so that you can have enough food to eat and a place to stay, that is a form of modern day slavery. All you have is basic subsistence. So what do you need to do? You basically need to work more. That was the first step for me, was working more. I had to work more hours because I couldn't do anything more of value. I didn't have a degree. I didn't have any other skills. So what I had to do was either try to use my skill from the military, which we'll get into later, or I had to just work more hours. All right, so if we can see this right here, basically your basic subsistence, let's just call this 20, all right, let's call this 2,000. Let's call this $2,000. Let's say you got $1,000 in rent, and then you've got $1,000 in every other expense. So essentially your basic subsistence right here is $2,000. If you earn that and you never earn any more, you're just always going to be at zero. You can't move upwards from there because you need some capital to move upwards. So what do you got to do? Let's say you pick up an extra 10 hours and your minimum wage is $10 an hour. So now you got $100 above basic subsistence. Now that you have $100 above basic subsistence, what are you going to do with that? That is the number one question. When you get to this stage in your life, that is the number one question. What are you going to do with that extra money? What I was doing when I first got started in my financial education, my life education, my school of hard knocks, was I would take this and I would go buy beer. I would go buy video games. I would go buy, I don't know, I would go eat out. What you've got to do with this extra $100 is you've either got to buy income with that, or you've got to buy some type of education. Go buy a book, go learn something, go to some type of a seminar, go put that into your education, which I also was, but that was through the military. So I think that that is very important because a lot of people they don't see the importance of that initial $100, $200, $300. They don't take that $100, $200, $300 and go buy books. They don't go buy courses. They think that they're a waste of time when really they are starting to build up this baseline down here, this income. So you're buying income. I think that's number 4. We'll get into that, but let's get back on script here. I'm trying to keep myself on track a little bit so I don't ramble like I did yesterday. So after we break through basic subsistence, we're essentially going to have to break broke people habits, because feel free to disagree with me on this if you feel like it, but from my experience and my readings and my experiences of the world, if you come from a broke background, you tend to have broke people habits. So broke people habits, things like consumer debt, things like, I don't know, putting some consumer purchase on a credit card and not paying it back, things like going into debt for your car, things like just taking out huge interest rate loans. Fixed mindset, that's another thing that we should talk about as well. So a fixed mindset, a lot of the people that have a fixed mindset, it comes from the idea that there will always be a bottom in society. And yes, as we talked about earlier, you probably have to start from the bottom if you don't have a good financial backing, if you don't have anyone to help you boost above the bottom in the beginning. Yes, you have to start from the bottom, but that does not mean that you as an individual have to stay at the bottom. That does not mean that anyone as an individual has to stay at the bottom if you're taking that, like we said, $100, $200, $300, and you're putting it towards income. You're putting it towards building your skills. So first thing that I had to break before I really started rocketing myself forward to wealth was I had to break my fixed mindset. I had to understand that just because I'm making this today doesn't mean that I'm going to be making this tomorrow. Just because, for example, I'm a lab tech, just because I'm a lab tech today does not mean that I'm going to be a lab tech tomorrow. Just because you have some job that you trained for in college and you're doing that job today does not mean that you're going to be doing the same thing tomorrow. So the habits that you have today are not necessarily the ones that are going to carry you forward into tomorrow. And that is the fixed mindset. That instead of the fixed mindset, we got to adopt the growth mindset. So let's get into the next one. We got to get rid of other habits like this one: get rich quick, lotto, casino, trading, etc. So a lot of things that are very appealing to us are just those get rich quick, because we don't understand things that underneath it, like the law of compensation, how prices work in the environment, which I'm about to get into right now, because we think that we can get rich quick. We don't understand if we come from the bottom. We don't understand how people got there. We don't understand the value that they provided. We don't understand how they provided said value. All right, so this next one down there is the law of compensation. So law of compensation, I really like that one. It's basically the whole idea of you reap what you sow. So in other words, any action that you take will be rewarded with its equal opposite. So if you take a bunch of negative actions, if you take a bunch of invaluable actions, you will be rewarded with a lack of value. If you provide a lot of value to people out there, you will be sent back value to yourself. So next thing, how prices work. So I think that it's very important that people understand how prices work, supply and demand works. We can get into that in another video, but the point that I wanted to make with how prices work is that prices, when you go through an economy, prices work and capitalism works because when two people go and exchange their goods or services, the two people come out both better for it. So when two people come out both better for it, that is when you have a transaction. For example, if I have $5 and you have a sandwich, or you have whatever good that you're selling, I don't want to make you into a sandwich maker if you don't like making sandwiches, but if I have these $5 and I value what you have more than I value my $5, then I am willing to transact my $5 so that I can have whatever it is that you are selling. So once you understand that, hey, if I can provide something that is more valuable than the amount of money that I want back, then I can get as much money as I want to. At that point, it just becomes a game of how valuable can I make myself. Next thing we're gonna get into is environment. And this one really holds a lot of people back because a lot of people want to go into a new life, but they don't start a new life. So essentially what I mean is they don't go into a new environment. They don't surround themselves with new friends. They don't surround themselves with new habits. They don't start reading and learning about new ways to be. They don't study rich and successful people. They do not change anything about themselves. But then they wonder, why is it that I started poor and I'm still poor? Well, correlation doesn't equal causation, but if you stay in a poor environment and you stay around poor thinkers, you're going to stay poor. You are going to absorb the environment around you and become a part of it. This is just natural. It's a natural law, you could even say. That's why the environment is super important. There's a lot of people that I still love them to this day, but we don't talk nearly as much because I can't be in that environment. I can't be in that mental environment. I can't be in that physical environment because I'm going to become more like that environment. So if I want to get out of a broke environment, I can't be going and visiting broke thoughts, broke people. And as bad as that may sound to some people out there, that's just how it is. So that's why you see a lot more correlation than causation, especially in a country like the US or like the other countries that we listed that have a very high social mobility score. So last thing that we do, now that we've got our mindset right, we've gotten past basic subsistence, we've got our extra money that we can take off the top, we've got our $100, $200, $300 that we can take and we can invest it into ourselves instead of going to these concerts, instead of going on these trips, instead of going to, you know, all these other things. We're delaying the gratification. Now we start to buy income. So basically what we're gonna do is that, like it says down here, we're gonna invest time and we're gonna invest money. So maybe it means skipping that extra party. Maybe it means that your friends aren't gonna see you for a while because you gotta build some value within yourself. You gotta miss a couple things. You've gotta miss a couple trips. You gotta miss out on spending a little bit of money on that thing that you want. You gotta miss a lot of things. You gotta delay that gratification. So anyways, hopefully you guys like this video. I really felt a little bit impassioned after yesterday because I'm preaching to the choir here, but listen, if you want to make it in life, you got to be obsessed with it. It's got to be the primary thought on your mind. The primary thoughts on your mind, that's where you're going in life. If you're thinking about going and being a millionaire all the time, that's what you think about day in and day out. Like, think about somebody like a Michael Phelps. Back when he was swimming, all he thought about was swimming. All he talked about was swimming. Day in and day out, he was swimming. Guess what? He became a great swimmer. So if you want to become a great investor, you want to become a very rich person, think about it, change your environment, change everything about your life, because then everything about your life will change. So I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for coming back.